I introduce our first speaker, uh, let me just remind you the rules for those who have just joined us. Let me just check the chat box. Okay. So your microphones are automatically muted on the entry. This webinar is being recorded. Whenever you have a question or you feel like writing something, just go ahead and do it in the chat box, and we will send you the recording and the slides soon after this webinar ends. Okay, so yeah, I'd also love to say a special thank you to our media partner, Affiliate Wallet, and to our friends from the Travel Massive community. Okay, I believe we can start. So please welcome Alicia Kapoor, who'll be opening our event. She's an industry consultant and SimilarWeb, and she works on the research solution aligned with travel, retail, and CPG. CPG stands for Consumer Packaged Goods. And she's based in the US, and I believe it's Connecticut now. So we have almost all the possible time zones covered today. And as far as I know, Alicia loves to travel very much herself. I guess this might be the very reason she agreed to join our conversation today and prepare slides in such limited time frame. Alicia, thanks again for accepting the invitation to speak for us today, and thanks for preparing this interesting data. I'm looking forward to hearing how the travel traffic is changing now.
Yeah, thank you. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick. You're right. I do love to travel. I miss traveling so much. I was supposed to go to Mexico this month, and I'm sure everyone kind of has trips that have been canceled or postponed. But at SimilarWeb, what I do is I am mainly a travel research consultant, and I track both web and mobile web analytics, as well as app analytics related to top travel providers. So I come bearing some hopeful news. And what we're looking at right now is actually traffic to online travel platforms globally. And this is a very kind of condensed view, but essentially this is a deck or a graph that our investors team put together, and we're able to kind of level the playing field and look at each country at after the 20 case mark. So you can see kind of where and when the impacts were for each country. And we're seeing that Japan and Southeast Asia and Hong Kong kind of had impacts a little bit later, mostly because they put in restrictions later. But overall, globally, we're seeing that traffic appears to be bottoming out. So you can kind of see that we've plateaued. I don't think that we're going to go any lower. So I think that this is now the time where we can start thinking about traffic starting to come back in some form. So we're really seeing that every major market kind of has hit this bottom, and we're going to see, I think, in the next few weeks, as countries start to open up again and as lockdowns start to be lifted, that there will be further interest in travel, that people will start kind of testing the waters, first domestically, as I'm sure most of you know, and then probably going a little bit further as months pass. But we are seeing that kind of at least in Germany, the Czech Republic, and in the US, we're already even seeing some openings. So I think in the next weeks, the data will show that too. So again, this is a pretty level playing field. I think it's a hopeful picture, even though we are kind of at the bottom, and even though the year-over-year change in travel, which is what this chart is showing, has been negative, we are going to see positives soon. So we can go to the next slide, and that's where I kind of looked into the traffic for each of our panelists. Unfortunately, Mike, we do not have Georgia travel data or data for consumers in Georgia. But what we are seeing here is that out of the countries that the panelists are from, Thailand actually had the smallest decrease in traffic to websites to the top 100 travel sites between March and April, whereas traffic has decreased the most in India. And I think that this makes sense, right? India has had really restrictive lockdowns, as Roxanne and I were talking about earlier, and I'm sure she'll probably tell you all. And then the UK, which kind of had a middle decrease, it had a 53% decrease in traffic, has also had a pretty long lockdown, and they're actually starting to implement quarantines for outside visitors for 14 days whenever anyone comes into the country. So that's going to be, I think, the new normal there. And that I don't think has been planned out very well yet, but Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced it yesterday. Whereas in Thailand, I believe the situation has been a little bit more lax. I mean, I think that the country is still locked down as most countries are, but I think that there's been a little bit more movement. And I know that there's going to be a focus everywhere, as I said, on domestic travel, but Thailand has especially started to take the steps to actually initiate that and hopefully make that more possible in the upcoming weeks and months. So we can go to the next slide now. So as Nick said, I am in the US. I kind of have been focusing on US traffic, but also what we are seeing in the US is that traffic is slowly starting to pick up, which is really exciting. So as I mentioned earlier, at the state level in the US, we are seeing restrictions being lifted. And we're starting to see more accommodations traffic. So this chart is actually showing traffic at the hotel's line of business. So we can actually go to the granular level of getting to a page of seeing when people are going to hotel pages. And what we're seeing is that, as you can see, Airbnb has actually had a pretty significant spike over the past few weeks. And the lowest traffic day for everyone listed here was April 4th. So that was a little over a month ago. And then since then, traffic has actually increased 109%. So we're able to track daily traffic, and it's a really hopeful picture, like I said before. Since January 1st, or the beginning of the year, we saw that traffic declined about 78% for online travel agencies and 74% for hotels, but only 50% for Airbnb and VRBO. So I think that as you guys are kind of starting to think about strategy and partnerships and where you're going to go next, I think keep vacation rentals in mind. I know there's a huge debate about who's going to come out on top, whether that's vacation rentals or hotels. I think there's kind of pros and cons to each model for people traveling. So on one side, vacation rentals are normally a little bit more isolated, but also there's kind of been concerns about the standardization of cleaning, which I know Airbnb has actually been very forward thinking about and has implemented 48-hour quarantines in between stays, and then implemented kind of a mandatory cleaning checklist. And then there's kind of the idea that hotels are so crowded and there's so many people that how are you going to feel safe being around that many people? And I personally think, looking at the data and looking at kind of data for other countries as well, that vacation rentals are going to come out on top. I think Airbnb has been leading kind of the travel space in terms of all of the protocols that they've been taking. So this is something to keep in mind. So once travel does pick up again, you can be a little bit more strategic about where you go, kind of who you partner with, and what you choose to kind of show in your blogs. And then just a side note too, we're also seeing Airbnb and Google Hotels are actually coming out of this with higher traffic shares, or currently have higher traffic shares. So I wouldn't be surprised to see those two players gain even more traffic in the upcoming months. And then if we go to the next slide, we're able to look at conversions. So getting to an even more granular level, we look at the thank you or confirmation pages on websites to get this data. And what we're seeing is that this is only showing the month of April. So for context, converted visits for this set were about 80% lower than the month of February, which is not pictured. But that being said, we're seeing some spikes, and we're actually starting to see the trend move upward again. So conversions are still low, but they were 120% higher on average during the first 7 days of May than the first 7 days of April. And the spikes that we're seeing here, the first spike was Airbnb. It looks like that could have been from bookings for families or groups for Easter, because it was right before that weekend. And then the second spike was from Marriott, which more than doubled converted visits after articles came out featuring the hotel chain for its global cleanliness council. So I think sanitary measures taken to, I guess, kind of prove how you're trying to make accommodations sanitary for travelers is really effective right now, as I'm sure most of you are feeling. That you want to kind of stay in a place that's really safe and clean. And I think that the great thing about this is that companies are cognizant of that and they're really making efforts to make sure that consumers feel comfortable. And I think overall, like as horrible as this whole situation has been, there's going to be some really great things that eventually come out of it for travel. I think we're going to have a lot safer travel, a lot more sanitary travel, more comfortable travel on planes, even with more spaced out seats. So I think that those are some things to kind of look forward to eventually. And then lastly, if we look at a major online travel agency, booking.com, on the next slide, we're actually able to see that they're kind of starting to make some moves. So booking.com traffic increased about 25% worldwide in the past 28 days. And when I dug into that, I found that they're actually getting increased referral traffic from a site called Point Town in Japan. So this site is a discount marketplace. It kind of features all different types of discounts and coupons, and the traffic from this is probably coming from their travel and traffic, or their travel pages. But essentially, what I'm assuming is that Booking is actually putting out discounts for travel. This site is working with Booking to promote those, and we're seeing a ton of traffic go from Point Town to Booking compared to almost no traffic in the 11 months before. And Point Town made up 71% of Booking's incoming traffic to Japan in April. So as you start to kind of, again, think about travel picking up and what the future is going to look like, I think that these are all really important things to think about. Obviously, which players are coming out on top, but also what different major OTAs or hotel providers are thinking about and what that's going to look like for the future of travel in general. So that's kind of my piece. I'll hand it back to Nick, but feel free to ask any questions. And I hope you guys enjoyed this data.
Thanks a lot, Alicia. It was very interesting and very helpful. And what's more important, I would say that it is showing, good signs. And let's keep our fingers crossed that it will go away. I mean, like, we'll get back to normal very soon. So once again, thanks a lot. I'm just seeing that I've got some technical issues. Could you please send pluses to the chat box if you can hear me well? Yeah, all right, good. Yeah, so by the way, like, before we proceed, I would like to add that we at Travelpayouts have created the survival kit for travel bloggers and travel projects, which we have been like constantly improving, updating, and enriching with the best techniques on how to make the most of it during the COVID time. So please click on the link in the chat box to get your copy of the survival kit. Pretty sure my colleagues will send it to the chat box right now. Yep. So, right, it's time to finally introduce you to our team of bloggers for today. So, first of all, I'd like to please welcome Rick Gazarian, who's going to be our moderator today. Rick is a travel blogger, author, documentary producer, podcaster, speaker at Global Guest, and he currently lives in Thailand. He is on a quest to travel to all 193 UN countries, and he's sharing with his readers must-see places, unique experiences, and off the beaten path locations. So he has already traveled to over 140 countries, such as Afghanistan, Algeria, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Pakistan, and so many others. And here are our panelists. Alex Arthwaite, she's a TV presenter and travel vlogger from the UK. Her TV shows have been nominated for awards and are broadcast in over 30 countries worldwide. She also has a social media presence and YouTube channel with over 130,000 subscribers. Alex is always traveling the world, and she calls herself a backpacker and adventurer. Roxanne Bambot, she's a food and travel writer and content creator from India. Roxanne is a chapter leader for Mumbai at Travel Massive. Her main interests are food and travel, and she talks about both of them on her blog called The Tiny Taster. She's won an award for the best culinary travel blog for the past 4 years. She has hosted many food-based events. So she works extensively with the travel community that includes tourism boards, airlines, hotels, and various travel companies and tour operators. And finally, Mike Swigansky is the #1 best-selling travel author and founder of Global Career. Travelpayouts, we know Mike as a US blogger, but he currently lives in Georgia. Mike has been working and traveling internationally full-time since 2011. And his journey has taken him to almost 90 countries. As a blogger, he shares his passions and knowledge about travel, remote work, and entrepreneurship. Mike helps people start their own remote life and land a high-paying remote job. So once again, please ask your questions in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. Yeah, Rick, could you please pick it up for me?
Ricky, you're muted.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Alicia. There's some great data there and some rays of hope for all of us in the travel industry. So, hey now, my name is Rick Gazarian. I am a travel blogger at Global Gaz, a podcaster at Counting Countries, and the Asia coordinator at Travel Massive. But more importantly, I am going to be your host and moderator for our panel today. And I'm very excited for our 3 guests today. We have 3 content creators, obviously from the travel industry, and 3 representatives from different parts of the world, as Nick shared with us. In a moment, I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you in a little bit more detail and in their own words. Just a reminder, we want to hear feedback and questions from you. So feel free to jump over to the chat box. We'll be monitoring that today as we speak with our panel. And at this moment, I'm going to be asking Alex, Mike, and Roxanne to introduce themselves to you. Alex, let's start off with you, please.
Lovely, thanks very much. So I'm Alex Outhwaite, and as mentioned, I'm a television presenter with a focus on travel and a little bit of food as well. So I work for 2 different travel channels. One's based in Mumbai called Travel XP. They broadcast in about 30 countries worldwide. And I also work for a British channel called Globetrotter as well. When I'm not filming for the TV channels, I create a lot of my own travel content, mostly video, and I do have a focus on YouTube. So I've got around 8 million views now in the past 18 months on my YouTube channel, and I try to focus on lesser visited destinations. So I filmed recently in Kashmir, Uzbekistan, El Salvador, and yeah, mainly adventure travel. I am a backpacker through and through. That's my style of travel. So it tends to be more on the budget end, to be honest. I'm more likely to be on night buses and hostels than I am in luxury hotels.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And Mike, if we can hear from you, we'd love to learn.
Yeah, hey everyone, Mike Swigansky here. Thanks for the introduction, Rick. Like mentioned before, I'm a best-selling travel author with Global Career, How to Work Anywhere and Travel Forever. The book focuses on teaching people how to choose an alternative path and start an international career or a remote lifestyle. Essentially what I do is I help people start their own global career through either working physically in other countries or finding a high-paying remote job. And I like to specialize in non-technical remote jobs. So there's this kind of misrepresentation around remote work that you need to be a developer or some type of coder to get a remote job. but that's 100% not true. And we at Global Career help focus on those non-technical jobs like customer service, marketing, or anything else like sales jobs that you can do from the comfort of your laptop anywhere around the world. So I focus primarily on helping people find remote jobs and build the lifestyle that they're able to work and travel at the same time, and essentially enjoy living overseas and taking advantage of the expat lifestyle. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Mike and Roxanne. If we can hear from you, that would be awesome.
Hi. So my name is Roxanne, and I am a food and travel blogger and content creator. I'm also, as you mentioned, the chapter leader for Travel Massive. I'm based in Mumbai. And I've also recently just launched my own private travel company. Well, it's not really a travel company, but it's more travel tours. I work in tandem with a company. So I call them the Tiny Taster Tours. The Tiny Taster is my website. It's my blog. And I focus primarily on food and travel. So the whole idea of these tours was to give a sort of holistic experience, like small groups, something that's guided, and really like my version of how I like to travel, where I want to go, what I want to see. So yeah, that's basically me.
Thank you, Roxanne, for your intro. And I would love to get 3 updates from our panelists. We've heard about, domestic travel starting up. We've heard early talk of, for instance, between Australia and New Zealand. To get a little update on how COVID is affecting your city or country. What's it like there? What's the latest? Alex, we'll start off with you again. Can you give us a...
Yes, of course. So we've had our message change from stay at home to stay alert, which has caused maybe a little bit of confusion in the UK at the moment. We've seen a little bit of progress with things starting to open. So for example, the National Trust, who, for those of you that don't know, they own a lot of heritage properties around the UK. And they've recently announced that they're looking at reopening some of the grounds for their properties. So at least if you're wanting to travel within the UK, still maintaining social distancing, then you are going to be able to visit some of these properties, which is a very good sign for domestic tourism. In terms of flights coming out of the UK, I think it's still going to be quite a long time until we're seeing people starting up their holidays again. But certainly a lot of the major newspapers here are starting to focus primarily on domestic tourism. I know The Guardian, for example, is only really doing domestic tourism. That's partly from an environmental standpoint, but certainly to do with COVID as well.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And Mike, I'd like to hear from you. I've been reading Georgia, one of my favorite countries to travel to, might actually be opening up its doors relatively soon. So if you can touch on what's going on in Tbilisi and Georgia, that would be great.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with the way the Georgian government's handled the situation here. They acted very early. They made a lot of smart decisions, and they've kept their active cases fairly low, around 300 total, and it's never really jumped above that at any point. And just today, they released some numbers that it was one of the days where more healthy people were released than new cases. So it's looking really bright for Georgia, and they've got a really interesting phased approach that they're going to be opening up things over 2-week periods. So we just started phase 1 on Monday, which is opening up some like construction, some other like essential stuff, and then it'll kind of work its way out. So I think in 2 weeks, it'll start opening up restaurants. And then from there, another 2 weeks, we'll start opening up more like shops, beauty salons, and then finally it'll open up malls. But I think all of this is contingent on things remaining calm, like as long as the flat line of new cases continues. So they've really seemed to think things through, and they're going to open up domestic tourism here, I believe, from June 1st. And then hopefully they'll be opening international tourism up in July. Fingers crossed that things stay well and stay on that kind of low plateau of not getting more new cases. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty bright for domestic tourism, and hopefully at some point progressing into international tourism here.
Yep, we will definitely keep our fingers crossed on that. And and let's hear from Mumbai for a moment. Roxanne, I've heard India's had some of the most stringent restrictions. What's going on there in Mumbai in India?
So we've been on a pretty tight lockdown for the last 2 months. I think it started somewhere around the 22nd or maybe 25th of March. But honestly, we're not complaining because there have been a lot of cases and this is what was necessary. Especially in Mumbai, unfortunately, there seemed to be a rise in the number of cases. So, and I think in other parts of India as well. So what that's led to is an extension of the lockdown. Currently, we are meant to be in lockdown till the 18th of this month, but I still see a lot of cases, at least within the city and in another neighboring city called Pune. So I don't know whether they'll extend it or not, but I do know that they are trying to ease things out a little bit. So they've demarcated it into different zones. So if you're in a green zone, then there are no cases and that's clear. So they're allowing more shops to be open. Of course, essential services are allowed. They started construction recently just on anything that's on an urgent basis. Like, for example, the apartment building that I live in, we were getting our roof repaired. And it has to happen before the monsoon, which is a month away. Otherwise, the people who live on the topmost floor are going to be swimming for the next 4 months. So if it's essential, then they've allowed that. So they're opening up a little bit, but for the most part, there's no public transport. There's, you know, you still maintain social distancing. There are no flights, but there has been word that we might start a few domestic flights in the next, say, 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm optimistic, but the truth is it's such an ever-evolving situation for us. So it's hard to really predict, but so far, so good.
Excellent, Roxanne, thank you. So the start of 2020, I think we were all really hopeful. It looked like it was going to be a great year for the global economy as well as travel. Obviously, COVID had another thing in mind. I want to hear what happened to your business. I mean, we saw that data from Alicia in the beginning. It's pretty devastating. So Alex, give us an idea. I mean, you're able to track your views on YouTube very easily and see what type of activity. What did January look like compared to April in terms of activity and volume and views and engagement?
Well, you're completely right. So we started off in January. I personally was feeling very positive. I actually spent all of January in Myanmar. So I was creating content there and my engagement was actually quite high at that point, the start of the year. February, I actually had quite a lot of new trips coming in and tourist boards approaching me for further trips in March and April. So I think by February, I had the next maybe 5 months planned out with trips, to be honest. So it looked like I really wasn't going to be at my apartment in London very much, which was a good thing. And then by the end of February, I started to get my first cancellations. And then of course, by the beginning of March, virtually every tourist board had cancelled the trips. I think I did have one that hadn't cancelled themselves, but of course I took the decision to not go on that trip, wanted to act responsibly. In terms of actual visits to my YouTube channel, for example, the ad revenue has dropped massively, probably about 80%, to be honest. Initially, I was getting less views, I think, when the COVID situation first happened, probably because people were focused on other areas than actual views were down on YouTube. This has started to creep up a little bit again, but the actual ad revenue, as I said, has massively dropped. So on one of my most popular videos, I would tend to get around $100 per 100,000 views, I think. And now it's probably about maybe $30, $40 per 100,000 views, which is really, really low for YouTube now. So I've been trying to repurpose some of my content from YouTube onto different platforms. I've got quite a big following on Facebook, but I've never really pushed the videos on there. And I know the ad revenue is going to be down as well. But if I already have this content, then I think repurposing it to a different audience is something that I can do without a huge amount of effort during this time.
Okay, well, let's be hopeful in that regard. And Mike, let's check in with you. What did your business look like in January versus today? What type of fall-offs did you encounter?
Yeah, so at the end of last year, I just launched a travel hacking course that teaches people, all the tricks that I picked up the last decade for utilizing credit cards, finding really cheap and discounted flights, and essentially everything you need to know to travel for very cheap and at discounted rates. In January, things were swimming along really well. A lot of new people joining the course. And eventually at some point, I just put it on pause. It's still open. People can still find it if you're interested in learning about travel hacking at this time. But at that point, I realized that, I'd already kind of pivoted into the remote job side. That was the core part of my brand. So instead of, looking at these shiny objects, I decided to focus on what my core business is. I realized that, the trends have been on the wall for the past few years for my brand is revolving around remote work. And I just went full on into the remote work side. So now I'm helping people through coaching and consulting. I have a remote life program. And I essentially, with this program, help people find a non-technical remote job that's higher paying than what they currently have or what they were making before. And the structure is so far so good. I've had a lot of people interested in this because people are wanting to make money, they're wanting to get income. And luckily what we've seen in some industries, a lot of remote companies have actually seen upticks in business depending on what they are. And there still is a lot of people hiring out there. So if you are looking for a remote job, it's still going to be competitive. But if you have the right structure and you follow, the right blueprint, you're going to increase your odds so much more than people that are looking to go into finding remote work right now. So everything's still positive, and right now is a great time to build that foundation for remote work. So when the opportunity does come back to start traveling again, you already have that infrastructure, and then you can start catching flights and working remotely and visiting either other countries or your own home country.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. And for those unfamiliar with the term, travel hacking is a process where people are able to earn a lot of points, which they can redeem for free travel. In the US, a lot of that is done vis-a-vis credit cards. Roxanne, don't be shy. What's going on in India? How is your business affected?
Well, in January, I was really excited because I announced one of my tours. I had a great year planned out travel-wise and work-wise. And I had to pull the plug, obviously, because initially it was like, okay, let's just pause things and see how it goes. But I think it was like a domino effect. Things just stumbled very quickly and we had to pull the tour. In fact, today I would have been in Cape Town leading the tour. As we speak and playing with penguins and, frolicking on the beach, but here I am. So it's hard because obviously traffic on the website for any sort of travel content has sort of tanked. There were work and sort of brand collaborations. I had a potential trip to Kenya and one to London, and everything just naturally had to be paused. And now I don't know whether brands will want to still promote a little bit later, like even when things open up and they say, okay, yes, we can travel. I just don't know whether they'll want to. So everything's been a bit of a question mark. But for me, I dabble with food and travel. So at this time, I've sort of tried to take a step away from the travel content and focus more on food content. And that's been working well for me. I've been focusing more on recipe content and things you could do at home during the lockdown. And that's been helpful so far.
Okay. Roxanne, let's delve into that for a moment longer. So a good exercise is to look at your Instagram account. And I think I noticed a really big difference about 11 weeks ago. So 11 weeks ago, your Instagram feed was full of travel photos. But since then, I'm seeing photo of delicious
Correct.
Indian food after delicious India food. So talk to me about how you're pivoting with your content, even though you were both a travel, food, lifestyle blogger before. It looks like your emphasis has changed dramatically in just the last 2 months.
Yes, and that's actually been a very strategic decision. It's something that I decided to not talk about travel right now because I can't speak for anybody else or wherever people are in different parts of the world, but my audience is predominantly India based. And right now we're all struggling. And we're struggling on different levels. I think a lot of people don't talk about the fact that so many people have lost their jobs. So many people have had to take a pay cut. So the last thing that they're really prioritizing is like, oh, once this lockdown ends, I'm just going to take a flight and, you know, laze on a beach in Bali, because that's not the priority. Also, I feel like it's been initially in the first, I want to say first month and a half, it was really difficult just to get access to basics like groceries. For example, the area that I live in became a hot zone overnight. And I know what it was like to not get things as simple as yeast or cocoa powder or even bread in some cases. And I just felt that it was not the time to talk about travel that I want to do or promote a destination that people cannot go to for various reasons. There's no flight, maybe you can't afford it, maybe their borders are shut. And just sort of pivot a little to something that people can relate to or that can be helpful in any way. So it started with me focusing all my social media on giving out information. I would just be putting out posts on like, hey, so-and-so is delivering, or you could buy XYZ product from this store. And it was like a collective effort. Everyone started pooling in saying, oh, where can I get this and that? And then I just realized I enjoy cooking. I mean, that's the whole point of my website. I enjoy food. And cooking at home became therapeutic for me. And just by sharing it, the feedback I got was phenomenal. And even on simple recipes, like I remember we were chatting about this, like just a simple recipe of a basic dal. I made a dal with spinach, which I cannot stand. But and I was like, this is so basic. Why would anybody want to even learn this? But the response was phenomenal. I had 100 people recreating that dal. So that then spilled over and I said, okay, let's just focus on this for now. And then when things ease up, once airlines open up, that's when we'll start talking about travel again. That was my decision.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roxanne. Alex, I'd like to hear from you. I'm seeing a lot of large brands who are promoting the concept of stay home today and dream about travel tomorrow. So, and then there's another part of this in the equation is some people are armchair travelers and they dream about travel and they like reading about content. They like watching videos, and other people are using the video for planning and making decisions. So what's your take? So from a video content creator, one, are you changing the content that you're publishing these days? And I don't know if you have a perspective. Any thoughts? What percentage of your viewership are people simply who are armchair travelers and really never leave their country versus people who are utilizing your videos to make plans and make decisions in the future?
So during the lockdown period, I've actually changed a little bit what I've been posting in a similar way to Roxanne. So towards the beginning of lockdown, I was doing a lot of how to travel from home. So I was sharing websites where you can see the northern lights from home or virtual museum tours, that kind of content. I was also collaborating quite a lot with other content creators, A, so we can all support each other, but B, just to bring in different ideas from people around the world, just like this panel does. And initially, I think people wanted to see that kind of content, and now the feedback I've been getting is that people are a little bit tired of only hearing about COVID. And I think we're starting to move towards, yeah, the armchair travelers, but also people needing some kind of escapism. I personally do. I mean, at the beginning of lockdown, I was checking the news 10, 20 times a day, whereas now I've managed to get it down to a kind of healthy 2 times a day. And yeah, we need that wanderlust. People like me who are traveling all the time, I'm certainly looking at far off destinations and not expecting that I'm going to be able to visit them anytime soon, but hoping that perhaps in the next year, if that's what it takes, that I will be able to start traveling again. I know that a lot of the people that follow my videos on YouTube perhaps are just armchair travelers. So those kind of people are going to be enjoying the content in the same way that they normally would. Maybe they're not going to be necessarily inspired to take a trip, but they're able to travel from their own home and not have to focus on the lockdown and the virus at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And curious, you mentioned about collaborating with other content creators. Can you give us an example of why you would want to do this, or an anecdote of a win-win situation, which is helping both you and who you decide to partner with?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the travel industry in general is a very supportive community. And I think almost every time that I've collaborated, whether it's been me asking others to work on a project with me, or if I've been invited to join someone else's, I think everybody has benefited, whether this is learning from other people or creating new contacts, or even just gaining new followers, if that was what you were interested in. I don't think I've ever had a collaboration where I've thought, oh, that was a waste of time. There's always something that I get from this. I certainly like hearing perspectives from people around the world. I think we can continue to learn if we're meeting people, even if that's virtually. In fact, after this panel, I'm actually filming from home another collaboration with two YouTubers who are currently stuck in Turkey in a van. They were driving around the world and set off from London just before lockdown, unfortunately, and are now in a car park in Istanbul. And they're doing a video about El Salvador, and they're asking vloggers from around the world to talk about their experiences of El Salvador. So this has the benefits of promoting future tourism in a country like El Salvador, who has spent the past 2 years really building up their reputation and losing the slightly outdated connotations that people maybe have with the country. So there's the plus side of that, and also hopefully by bringing in the promotion of other vloggers, then this couple in Istanbul are going to be able to get more ad revenue from their video.
Excellent, thank you. And Mike, at the end of the day, we're all travel bloggers, and the perception of travel blogging is it's the best life in the whole world. You get to travel everywhere, explore everywhere. But the reality is we're all business owners, and most of us are sole proprietors, meaning we have to do all their work for ourselves. And we all know how busy we can be between travel and creating content. A lot of stuff gets pushed aside. So I've been talking to some content creators, some travel bloggers who are using this time to do some of the blocking and tackling, which we neglect. So I don't know if you can touch on SEO, analytics, link building. Are you doing anything in regard to that, in essence, to polish up the blog?
Yeah, I think right now there's going to be kind of two parties. There's going to be the travel bloggers who just kind of throw in the towel and they're like, okay, I can't travel. Like, I just can't create content right now. But then there's going to be the people who innovate. They use this time to focus on other parts of their business. And within 3 to 6 months, they're going to come out way stronger. And a lot of that is definitely going to come down to the people who are building links and focusing on SEO right now. One example of a really interesting SEO strategy that I'm utilizing right now is I'm compiling a 150-page list of the top 100 remote companies. And why did I focus on this? And I surveyed my audience and found out some of the frustrations and issues that people have with remote work. And one of the top things that people are struggling with is finding these remote companies that are legitimate. A lot of people were running into scams. And this is something I've been involved with remote work for years. I didn't even realize that it was that big of an issue. But I would say almost 70% of the people surveyed said that was their biggest frustration, was finding legitimate work from home and remote jobs. So this article that I'm working on is going to be, one, providing really good value to my user base, But again, it's going to be highlighting these remote companies, giving them awards for becoming one of the top 100 remote companies, and sending them badges that they can use to put on their website, link to my website to get SEO juice, and eventually, you know, get some of that promotion to this 150-page ebook. So by targeting these 100 remote companies who are, you know, people that I want to have as customers to promote their remote jobs, since I do own a remote job board. So it's going to be, one, providing really good value to my audience, and two, highlighting these top 100 remote companies, and hopefully eventually they'll be promoting it to their audience, sharing it with their audience, and giving my personal brand some type of SEO link juice. And this is a great strategy, and you can utilize it in almost any industry where you're creating a roundup of, you know, influencers in the industry, and then because they're featured in that roundup, they're going to promote it to their audience. They're going to share it with their, and hopefully give you a backlink, which will improve your SEO. So that's one really great strategy that you can implement no matter what type of business you have.
Yeah, Mike, I think that's a great example, and almost what Alex was saying. So it's a win-win in essence of a collaboration. You can overlay this template over any industry or any travel blogging website, create list, share some value, give the people on the list a benefit, and of course that helps you as well. So very cool, and a good example that everybody can employ. Roxanne, I know you're working with brands in India, and of course I think things looked dramatically different in January than they do in May. But are any of these brands still have opportunities today, or are they forward looking, or is there other different ways that you can partner with a local brand even during this time of COVID?
I think it's different for different brands. For the most part, everyone's putting out information just to say, hey, we're still there. You know, we're taking safety precautions. I think the messaging right now is all about how safe they are and how they're trying to maintain hygiene levels. Like, for example, there is an Indian brand of hotels called ITC that just put out a huge release saying, you know, we're stepping up our hygiene protocols. And a doctor actually replied, because I shared that on my Instagram, and he said, this is incredible because this is the same standard that they're going to use, which are implemented by hospitals. So you know for sure that you're going to be okay if you were to visit that hotel, you know, a couple of months down the line. So I think eventually all brands will kick back up. I just don't know. My hesitation or the question mark is that I don't know whether they're going to partner with a travel blogger and put money on the table. That is my question mark. And to be fair and to be completely honest, it's always been a bit of a struggle with the Indian market. There is a great relationship, and if you're able to show value and you can leverage that, then of course there's great money to be made. But for the most part, a lot of bloggers struggle with this aspect of it. And I think that is where my hesitation is, because after all this, you've been shut for so long, you've had all these expenses, and it's going to get more expensive because now your focus is going to be like, I need to get everything spick and span. So that is why my hesitation is, I don't know whether they'll want to put money on the table and partner with a travel blogger, but I'm hopeful. I think some will, maybe not all.
And I mean, you're bringing up a great point, but in the same light, are you being proactive? Are you still reaching out to brands that you've worked with previously? Are you reaching out to new brands where you're able to offer some insights in how to position themselves during this really scary and unstable time?
Currently, I am not. In fact, what I'm doing is what Mike just said. I'm trying to focus more on like the things that I've put on a back burner, because I've always said, oh, we're traveling and there's no time. So I'm trying to focus more on SEO and my backlinks and just trying to get my stuff to be current and okay. But what I am doing is I am identifying people, and I am identifying certain projects that I want to pitch to, or certain brands that I want to pitch to. And an idea of what to promote, like once this opens up, and I'll only start approaching them once at least the airlines start opening up. I mean, let's look at airlines even just for domestic travel, because I've had the same conversation at least 4 times in the last 2 months. So at every time it's like, I don't know how to approach them, because we don't know whether we're even going to be able to move out. Like right now, I can't even get out of my house. So the idea of pitching to a brand whose brand manager is going through the same thing, because everything is like, okay, we'll see when the time comes. So I think right now I'm identifying what I want to do and how I want to do it. And I'm also trying to focus on collaborating with smaller brands, more local brands. And I have a vague idea of what I want to do, and I'm sort of fine tuning it as I get more and more information, or as, you know, sometimes an idea strikes, like even on this session, I thought of some stuff, so I've jotted it down, and I will approach them. But I think it makes sense to wait till there's some sort of clarity or indication as to, at least for me in Mumbai, when I'll be able to get out onto the street, forget on a plane.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roxanne. Alex, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there a second. I actually have been approaching brands during this time, slightly different brands to what I'd normally approach. So of course I maybe haven't been approaching tourist boards or hotel booking websites, because perhaps they don't have the budget to work with bloggers and vloggers now. But there are other brands, for example, language learning apps, who have obviously seen a big upturn in the amount of people downloading them. Duolingo has seen a huge increase in the amount of people wanting to learn a new language for the future. And I've actually approached quite a few brands like this, Adobe as well. Of course, people are trying to look for new skills, learning video editing or photo editing at home. And I've had some success approaching brands with specific ideas. So rather than just reaching out with a, hey, this is what I do, do you want to use me? I've tried a more direct approach with a specific idea as to what I can offer. And some brands have actually been quite receptive to that, if I've given them a kind of bullet point list of what I can offer during this period.
Okay. And Alex, curious, I don't know how you operate exactly with tourist boards or brands.
Yeah.
Is any of this affiliate sales? So in other words, are you getting a set fee from somebody for your content in return, or someone like Duolingo, or are you able to set up some sort of affiliate type transaction when you're promoting their product?
It's a bit of both, really. I mean, I'm able to do the affiliate side if I want to, and with a lot of my brand partnerships, I do join the affiliate schemes. A lot of the time, I tend to either charge a day rate or charge a certain amount, depending on what the content I'm creating is. So, for example, it could be I'm going to do 1 video for you on YouTube. I will do 2 Instagram accompanying posts and some Twitter, and then I will give them a rate based on that. And then of course, if I am able to use the affiliate scheme to get a bit more income, then that's up to me.
Okay, and I don't know if you can delve a little deeper into this. We have a question from Jissy, and her business, it sounds like, was based quite a bit via Amazon and flight tickets through Travelpayout, which is awesome to hear. So have you noted or looked at or recognized any affiliate programs or products which seem to be a much better fit in today's environment when people are staying home versus where we were in December or January?
Yeah, basically the ones where people are able to learn something from their own home have been quite good for me. So I did a partnership with Skillshare, for example. You might have seen adverts for their online lessons. In fact, that's another income stream for a lot of people as well, because Skillshare is actually a platform where you can create your own lessons, which people can then pay for. So if you have a skill, whether it be cooking like Roxanne or writing, you can create your own lessons and get your own revenue stream from that, as well as the affiliate program. So just try and make a note of things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and then try and associate a brand with that skill. and there's still quite a lot of affiliate schemes that are going to benefit you during this time.
Yeah, yeah, Alex, I think that's a great takeaway. So all of us are, being affected. We're not able to travel, unfortunately, and that's our passion for most of us. So what are you personally doing to fill up your day? And look at what you're doing, and then that's obviously a brand that makes sense for you to support. So you should be sharing that with your followers and video watchers, readers, etc. So great point, and thank you for sharing that. Mike, let's look at the other side of the balance sheet in essence. Anything that you are doing to control costs. So when you saw traffic in February or March or April dropping 50 or 60 or 70% to your blogs, was there anything that you did to look at your expenditures on any given month and anything that you're able to do to save money?
Yeah, I commonly use a program called Mint. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's great. Even if you don't have a business, it's great for tracking your personal finances. It syncs up to all of your bank accounts, credit cards. And this is something I teach in my travel hacking course. It's just kind of finance 101 is you get alerts when there's like fees. If you've been charged unnecessarily for stuff, they'll alert you. You can set up all these type of budget tracking stuff through Mint. It's a free platform, but just go through there, look through the past few months, see if there's anything unnecessary that you can cut. So that's kind of one thing I did. I do this on a regular basis, but every month I review my expenses and see where I can, where I'm getting a lot of benefit from stuff. If I'm not utilizing some type of software or program, then I'll put it on pause or just cancel it. And I think that's a good thing to consider right now. But one thing I want to note is there's always going to be some type of platform risk, whether you're utilizing on YouTube, your traffic's coming from Google, wherever it's coming from, there's going to be some platform risk. But one of the best ways to control that risk is by building a good email list. And I'm sure we've all seen this through the years, 5-10 years ago, you could put a Facebook post out there, every one of your followers would see it, but now it's a fraction of a percent. And that's the great thing with building email. So right now, if you're generating traffic, even if it's gone in half, if you're able to convert those users into email subscribers, you're able to promote affiliate offers direct to them. You're able to promote your own products. So transitioning your focus to collecting some type of value-added opt-in, whether it's an ebook, some type of free content for them, where they're going to really love to opt in and get some quality content from you. I think being able to control email is one of the most powerful tools out there. There's still some risk to it, but I send an email blast to 50,000 people on my list. That email shows up in all 50,000 people's inboxes. Whether they open it or read it is another case, and that's something you can tweak. But I still always preach to go down the email route as far as you can and try to control your platform as much as possible.
Yeah, Mike, excellent point bringing up the email. Many people say that's the holy grail because at the end of the day, Facebook or YouTube, you don't own that platform. And in essence, you don't own those followers, but the emails, those are yours. So I guess two questions. One, what are you using as a mechanism to get people to provide their email on your website? And two, how are you trying to convert them after the fact? So give us an example. In essence, what are you selling to them vis-a-vis the email?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'll utilize my best opt-in right now, and that's on the remote jobs board. It's called globalcareer.io. And people are essentially looking for remote jobs while they're on this website. And if they don't find a job that they're looking for, they can opt in to get new job alerts. But once they opt in, they get put into a 10 email drip workflow that tells them more about the brand, teaches them some good value about how to find a remote job. But it's also pitching some stuff, it's pitching my book, it's pitching my personal brand. But for every pitch, I'm trying to add a lot of value in their journey. And I know what people go through, and I'm trying to be as helpful as possible by still asking for return. So my general approach is, to overgive value, But for those people who are looking for something, I'm going to have an offer there for them to take the next step. And that's, through book sales, through my remote life program, where I personally help them out to go through the remote job seeking cycle. So there's a lot of interesting ways that once you do have these emails, you just got to test and see what works. And one of the best ways to do this is to ask your audience what they want. I've spent a lot of time surveying my audience, figuring out what pain points they're having right now. That might have changed, over the past 3 months. So something that they were struggling with 3 months ago, you need to continually ask what your audience wants. It's a very easy. I sent out a survey. I kind of struggled with the idea. I was like, oh, maybe I should promote it with an Amazon gift card, but I didn't. I ended up not doing that. I didn't promote anything. It was just, hey, I need your guys' help. If you have 5 minutes to fill out this survey. And I got, around 500 people to fill it out just for nothing in return. And with all that data, I'm able to kind of mold my business to meet their needs and provide them better content. So I think that's something, if you're not doing now, is one, collecting emails and providing good value, and two, surveying your audience to see what they want, what they're struggling with, and how you can provide a solution for them.
Okay, that's a great takeaway, is demonstrating value and creating a solution for your clients. So that's the way that you're going to get a loyal follower readership. Roxanne, a lot of us have been so busy pre-COVID. We're running around working on 50 projects. I know I've had a project personally I've had on the back burner for 3 years. It's a ebook I've thought about often about creating. I actually started on it last month because I have a bit more free time. So anything for you in this regard, a project that you've thought about for months or years that you've finally been able to focus on?
Yeah, actually too. Well, I wanted to write an ebook, and I also a hard copy book. And I'm happy to say that I'm working on both of them because I have enough and no distraction. But a YouTube channel, which is really fledgling at this point. So I'm trying to do that build it with a little more food content. The content that I had previously was all travel based. I think these two that I've wanted to focus on. The ebook that I wanted to write out there, but I'm going to complete it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Roxanne. And Alex, is there a silver lining? This has just been a traumatic period of time for the global economy, for the tourist industry. But is there something we have to look forward to? Meaning, will there be a move, a shift to more sustainable travel, to slower travel, to what's the silver lining from your perspective?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think hopefully it's going to move more towards sustainable travel, but not just environmentally sustainable, but also socially sustainable. There are certain areas of the world that have obviously massively suffered from over-tourism. And I think that hopefully a silver lining of this is that it's actually going to open our eyes a little bit more to other areas of the world that are less explored. We're going to probably deep dive into a culture more rather than just rushing around. I don't think people are just going to try and get their Instagram photo and tick it off the list anymore. I think people want a more meaningful experience. Certainly in the UK with lockdown, we're missing social interactions. We're missing seeing our friends and meeting new people. And I think this is definitely going to be more of a focus on travel in the future.
Hey, thank you, Alex. And Mike, what are your thoughts? So in the hopefully in the near future, a vaccine will be found. Things will quote unquote go back to normal. But whether this is in 12 or 18 or 24 months, what do you envision? Do you think your business will be the same? Is your goal to simply go back to the way you operated in January, looking out 24 months from now? or do you envision a different template going forward?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about my business is I'm going to be able to adapt and change. I don't foresee going backwards. I think with all this, you're going to have to adapt and continue forward and make those tweaks and changes and adjustments as we go. And that's kind of what I see with the future of travel. First off, the travel is the dynamic is going to change a lot from the checking in at an airport to sitting next to somebody on a plane. I think initially they're going to try a lot of stuff. There might be some type of international, regulations that go into how airports operate and run things. I do foresee some type of vaccination requirement or health vaccination requirement for when people do travel, similar to what we have, like a yellow fever card that shows that you have this vaccination. I do foresee something like that, but I do think they're going to test a lot of stuff and see what works, and eventually it'll become the new normal. Whether what that looks like and what the timeline looks like, nobody really knows, but I do foresee the travel industry definitely changing for a lot. Hopefully we'll be getting some more space on airplanes. That's one kind of silver lining that I have my fingers crossed for, but we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be domestic travel. Staycations are going to be the very near future. Business travel will start opening up. The business travelers are a lot of the people who pay, the airlines. That's where they get the most money from. Same for hotels. So I kind of foresee them jumping back in once businesses start opening. They'll be a little bit more risk tolerant, I think, than the average Joe who's looking to take a family vacation. So that's kind of my predictions, but we'll see. I think the timeline is the hardest thing. It's going to be varying for each country. Some people are going to get very strict, and some countries are going to take advantage of this opportunity and adapt and change their type of the type of tourism that they're pitching and trying to attract.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Well, we're going to wrap things up here. A giant thank you to my panel, Mike, Alex, Roxanne. Thank you for your time and your insights. And also a big thank you to Travelpayouts for hosting this panel. I appreciate that as well. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back to Nick, who's going to wrap things up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And thanks a lot, guys, for sharing the insights from different countries with us and sharing your techniques and strategies on how to deal and cope with this COVID situation, what you do. So yeah, it was really great to find out about all of these things you're doing right now. Let me just start sharing my screen again. Yeah, just gonna remind everyone that we'll do another session in a week on May the 20th at 3 p.m. GMT. So yeah, save the date and please attend this session. Sorry. And once again, just wanted to say thanks a lot to everyone who came to the webinar today. If you have any further questions, please address them to support@travelpayouts.com. Other than that, just wanted to say, please stay safe and everything will be back to normal very soon. We hope so.